After winning all of these accolades and we got to a certain point as a practice, I still had this nagging feeling that hadn't achieved anything that I'd really set out to really achieve. The business plan, which was entirely wrong in terms of numbers, but the overall idea was correct. I said to Mary, look, there's just this amazing opportunity. How would you feel about selling the house? And I think we were both torn by it really, but Mary's always been a massive supporter of me through my whole career, and she realised that I really wanted to go for it. We came up with the idea of selling the house in order to fund the project, which is then what we went on to do.
Welcome to Architecture Business Club, the show that helps you build a better business in architecture so you can enjoy more freedom, flexibility and fulfillment. If you're joining us for the first time, don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss another episode. Last time we heard the first part of Carl Turner's career story, from setting up a practice straight out of uni, getting hands-on with construction to winning major awards and accolades. Let's pick up where we left off and hear about Pop Brixton, a pivotal project for Carl that opened up new opportunities for his practice. You could have comfortably stuck with the Resi projects, which is what you'd built that name for in the beginning, but you didn't do that. You mentioned there that there was an itch that hadn't been scratched, and a desire to do work on public projects. So you actually sold your award-winning home. You sold that and you put some of that money into a community development project called Pop Brixton. How and why did that come about, which seems quite a bold move to me? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, and again, it was a kind of accidental thing, really. And we'd built our lovely house. We loved living there. We told everybody when we built it was for our forever home, because that's what we actually thought. And I think after we'd been there for a couple of years, both Mary and I realised that we are serial renovators, serial project doers, and it's not that we got bored with it, but we were kind of wondering what was next. And we'd also hoped that in the process of building it, we wouldn't have a mortgage. And we still had quite a big mortgage. We had to borrow some money to finish the house, unfortunately, because it cost more than we thought. Surprise, surprise. And so I think So what happened with Pop Brixton is the council advertised in the local newspaper. My wife's from Brixton. We'd lived in and around Brixton for many, many years. And they had this bit of empty land and they called it a Meanwhile project. I'd never heard of Meanwhile before. So they wanted to do something with this bit of land for 2 years. And they had an idea of like testing out, experimenting to find out whether there was any appetite for local workspace in Brixton. And if there was, what did affordable look like? What kind of things, what did you need to make something affordable? So they put a call out to local people to come forward with ideas for this site. And it wasn't a design competition. It was to find somebody to effectively to build something on this site and then to run it for a year or two. There was no funding available, so you had to fund it. So anyway, after having a meeting with the council, a direction of travel meeting, I went to see them and said, look, I'd done this little project with one shipping container. So I said, I did this project at Hackney City Farm. I've got this idea about using shipping containers in creating a kind of mixed use campus with like food and drink and events, but predominantly workspace built from shipping containers. Is that the kind of thing that you're looking for? Because tell me now if it isn't, because I don't want to waste my time like designing the project. So they said, yeah, it sounds great. And to cut a long story short, we went on to win the project. And part of the bid was to put a business plan together. And I was in that great position of not knowing what I didn't know at the time. So in fact, the business plan, which was entirely wrong in terms of numbers, but the overall idea was correct. And so at that point, I said to Mary, look, there's just this amazing opportunity. How would you feel about selling the house? And I think we were both torn by it, really. But Mary's always been a massive supporter of me through my whole career, and she realized that I really wanted to go for it. We came up with the idea of selling the house in order to fund the project, which is then what we went on to do. So we didn't use all of the money. We used a sort of sensible amount. The kind of percentage that we thought if we lost everything, then we wouldn't be ruined. We could still carry on. So we won the competition, got planning, and then I spent about 100K buying a bunch of rusty old shipping containers that were 10 years old, stacked them all on the site, and kind of just made a start. So, and then I used the fact that it had some momentum and that we'd started building it, and the ambition was to open it in phases. And then I used that really as a sort of way to go and talk to other people like developers and investors to try and find somebody to invest the rest of the money in it. And actually, we had the money to build it if we had to, but we didn't really want to use all of our own cash. So that's how I became a kind of accidental community developer. And really that project was, I guess people would call it pivoting these days. So it was a pivot away from residential into the potential of working on exactly the type of project I'd always wanted to work on, which was entirely sort of community facing, and really the whole thing designed around providing affordable opportunities, startup space for local people.
It sounds incredible, and I've since had a look at photos of Pop Brixton. I've not had the pleasure of visiting yet, but I would love to come down to Brixton and visit it someday, because it just sounds an amazing space. And what a brilliant project to kickstart that pivot, if we use that word. I'm not really a big fan of that word, but that's kind of what it was, wasn't it? That kind of change of direction with the practice.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been going for 7 years. It was supposed to be a 2-year project. It's had millions of people through the door, and it's had the kind of impact for us as a practice, but I think also for the local community. But also, I've bumped into people from all over the world who've said they've been to Pop. It hasn't come up in the conversation, and they've just mentioned something about Pop Brixton. And I haven't even said, I set Pop Brixton. I've just kind of nodded and thought, this is amazing that there's literally people traveling to London to come and see Pop Brixton as an inspiration. And we've spoken to people. In fact, we've kind of advised people as far away as Japan who've set similar things up, and we haven't worked specifically on their projects, but they've come in and met us a few times, taught them through the whole process, and then they've gone and kind of done it themselves, which I think is a great outcome as well. And that's led to, so we then did another 2 projects, Peckham Levels, which is bringing the same ingredients as Pop Brixton and renovating a semi-derelict car park in Peckham that's had Frank's Bar, bowl tendencies on the roof for like 10 years before we took the empty levels, so we called it Peckham Levels, and that's been going for a few years now. So again, predominantly workspace, but has F&B and events. And then where I'm sat today, Hackney Bridge is the 3rd iteration of the same ingredients across London in Hackney, which is a 15-year sort of temporary project, but it's a new build. So it's a series of steel frame buildings built for disassembly, and again, a mix of F&B and drink. And then I've gone on to do a separate project in Turner.Works, which I've just handed the keys over to another tenant after running it for 5 years myself. So really after doing kind of 10 years of residential projects, now the whole practice has really been founded on these kind of public-facing mixed-use campuses, called Meanwhile because they're kind of, seen as being a temporary use of a site, but now it's starting to really influence the work that we're doing so we're now bringing similar ideas to university campuses, thinking about how we can reinvigorate university campuses, working for Google in their massive new building at King's Cross, doing some of the public facing spaces on the ground floor there, and a lot of other really amazing projects. And it's all really, you can trace the line all the way back to Pop Brixton and how that project really blew the whole game open for us.
A catalyst. That's so cool. And those sound like some other amazing projects that you've been working on. Aside from the projects, the type of projects that you've been working on changing since Pop Brixton. What else has changed for you and for Turner.Works, your practice, since that particular project?
I think the practice has been transformed, really. So we've been moving towards a practice which is not just based around me anymore, which, now I have a co-partner, Susie, Michael, associate director, and a great team here. So we're trying to evolve the practice. Because basically, when I first set up those kind of first 10 years or so, it was Carl Turner Architects, because I thought I'd say it for what it was. I was a single architect when I started. But as the practice has transformed, we've now Turner.Works. The idea that we're doing works, so that, we were sometimes operating projects, sometimes building them, sometimes we're designers, sometimes we're more at the kind of feasibility stage, helping to inspire projects. So we dropped the word architect, and we felt that was too specific and would not be broad enough. So I think the type of projects that we've done has changed. I think, as I was alluding to earlier, one of the things that's really changed is that we are now involved much earlier on in projects. So we do a lot of visioning and feasibility work, probably around the fringes of what traditionally will be called master planning. So we call it, what we do, our version is called micro planning. So I call it a plan of many small things. How can we bring agile tactics? Again, meanwhile is a tactic, really, as opposed to a thing. So how can we get places that are maybe a bit broken and a bit, lots of empty buildings? How can we get things moving really quickly? So what we quite often think about is matching up some local need with some local space, and then we put the things together and try and build a plan around that. So the kind of work that we do is move from delivery into sort of tactical and strategic, which again has got its own challenges. I do miss being hands-on and building things. And the projects that we are building are massive, big 10,000 square meter workspaces. We just got planning for about 120 homes in the centre of Catford and a big new civic square. That's our first big public housing scheme. And so the whole nature of practice has changed. We're much more collaborative now, working with we work quite often as the smaller practice with bigger teams, but also sometimes we're the team bringing in even smaller practices than us. So I think, whereas in the past we were working on our own, now we're quite often part of a big team. And I think we're able to deliver massive impacts with a relative, we're about 15 at the moment. With 15 people, we're able to make huge impacts, not necessarily by building buildings, but by bringing ideas to the table. And we're also working all over the UK. 10 years ago, I only really worked in London, which is where I was based. And now we're working into the north of it. In fact, we have a satellite office in Liverpool now. One of our team relocated there. So we're winning more work in the north. So I think for me, it's less about me personally being the author of everything that comes from our studio. We've got a really great team, and so the whole way that we work is completely different from the way that we worked 10 years ago. And in all honesty, I've got no idea where we're going to be in the next 10 years.
Oh, well, I mean, that sort of segues on to the next question that I had for you, Carl, which was about thinking about the future. So, yeah, I mean, for the future of Turner.Works, do you have any thoughts on where you would like to see the practice in the future, in the next 10 years, or what you'd hope to achieve in the coming years?
Yeah, I think as a group, we talk about this quite a lot, like what's next, because we've achieved a lot, and it's sometimes hard to lift yourself up to go again, because you have to have something to aim for, really. And I think in one respect, we would just like to do more of the same. So for the last 3 years almost, we've had a plan at a kind of business level to try and run a stable business. So because previously it's been all over the place, doing construction and operation, it's been really hard to isolate out particular bits of the business. And quite often, I think one bit of the business has kind of supported another bit that's maybe not been doing too well. So we're almost at the end of our first 3 years of really focusing on architecture as a separate thing. and setting ourselves a target of a certain amount of revenue that we need to hit to keep our team busy, to keep us. So basically, stability has been a big thing for us. We just wanted some stability. In order to do that, we've tasked ourselves with winning fewer, bigger projects because it's just easier to manage. We've been with the kind of feasibility work. We just have to, it's very intense. It has to be done quite quickly. Usually we have to throw a lot of energy at it. And then quite often it gets filed away in the filing cabinet and nothing really happens. It's quite demoralizing sometimes. So I think we'd like to see more projects coming through and being realized. The last 3 or 4 years has obviously been very difficult since the pandemic, but I think the kind of work we do can unlock difficult viability problems, thinking about let's just do the least thing that we need to do to get something moving rather than the most ambitious. We definitely like to work overseas. So we've got our first inklings of some overseas work. We've just been doing a little bit of work in Singapore with an arts organization, helping them figure out how they can transform a big building. And we think we've just won some work in Porto. We're just waiting to sort of agree the final terms, but transforming a sort of semi-industrial building into an F&B and workspace, which is right above the street. So yeah, I think what we really want to work on, we can't put it down to one thing, but we want to take on ambitious projects that make a big difference. So we don't really care what they are, just that we want to be able to, for us, we want to be able to run a stable business without kind of fretting that we're going to, hit the buffers at any one time, a bit less stress, but we also want to be really challenged with the work that we do. We want the work to really make a big impact on people's lives. So, and in particular, if we were being picky, we'd like to do more arts and cultural projects. That's a particular passion. I think our Mount View Drama School that we delivered maybe 5 or 6 years ago is one of those amazing projects, working for a fantastic cultural organisation, a new building that's a regeneration project really in its own right, just a dream project. So we'd like at least 2 of those every year from now on. That would be great.
Oh, I love that. I love this kind of ethos that you have, this sort of doing more with less and actually finding ways to actually get things done, even if it's not necessarily the most, how can we say, I don't want to say not most ambitious, because they are ambitious in terms of getting it done, but it's not necessarily like design for design's sake. It's about finding a way to make things happen. Particularly, these could be community or public projects where there isn't necessarily a huge amount of money, but you're finding ways to be creative to be able to actually make these things happen, notwithstanding those constraints, which I think is really cool. Have you got an interesting story about running your architecture practice? Have you done something different in your business that's been hugely successful? Or has a failure taught you an important lesson that you'd be willing to share? Then why not apply to be a guest on this podcast? Just click the link in the show notes to send us your details and get started today. And if you're joining us for the first time, don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss another episode. Now, let's get back to the show.
I think weirdly, John, one of the things I've learned over the years, I guess, is that sometimes capital A architecture, the ones that get, they win all the awards and the other architects drool over, they're actually the most challenging for people. Maybe they're a bit forbidding, and actually they're kind of more subtle buildings that feel less designed, buildings that can be appropriated by people, messed up by people. They're the ones that feel welcoming, and that's one of the success stories of Pop Brixton, is the fact that we designed it to feel undesigned. It slots into the kind of market there, and lots of people that have got, for instance, Caribbean roots in Brixton have said to me at the time, like, oh wow, it's amazing that you designed this to really fit in with a kind of this is like back home in Jamaica. And I said I've never been to Jamaica, and they said, oh, there's loads of stuff built from shipping containers, so it feels really like home. And I think that kind of low tech, low design, stuff that, if you go to Pop Brixton now, it looks completely different from when we finished it. It's covered in paint, and just people have made it their own. And it's, maybe from a purely aesthetic point of view, I could look at it and go, it's a bit of a mess, but actually it's really just, people have run with it. It's their own, it's not a piece of architecture. It's just a place that people love to go and hang out. And it's, we did a lot, we had lots of ideas about creating somewhere with no dead ends. So it's a kind of space that you can weave your way around. There's always something going on there. You can explore it. There's lots of design thinking there, but it's not, we didn't submit it for any design awards because we knew there was no way it was ever going to win an RBA award. But, it won awards for placemaking and meanwhile and that kind of thing. So, I think that relaxed way of delivering buildings is generally what people want. They don't want overly fussy, a building that if you move an object in it, it looks like a mess. They want somewhere they can live in and use.
Yeah, that's the thing that I guess sometimes you see the portfolio photos of finished spaces when they're kind of clean and not in use. They haven't got people's belongings or you're not being used by the end users, and they can look totally different. And sometimes there can be some impracticalities with it that actually fill it with people and fill it with stuff, and maybe it doesn't kind of work quite as well as that, because that's the thing, that these buildings are being designed to be used, aren't they? It's like we don't want to design something to leave it like a sort of mausoleum that's got nobody in it. Spaces that people are actually using, rather than it being just a sort of sterile environment that, as you say, oh no, don't move that there because it doesn't look right anymore.
Yeah, so I think probably when we started off, me and Cass, we had quite a minimal aesthetic. We were looking to kind of minimal art and kind of pure forms and spaces. And I still personally enjoy that way of doing things. But I think as I've matured as a designer, I've realized that you need to allow people more room to feel comfortable and to be able to adapt and change things. So you'll see that our work's got a lot more colorful and vibrant, and in a way, a lot of our projects tend to look quite scruffy because they get used by people and we photograph them when they're actually in use. But I think, we try to be honest about the spaces that we create. And for me, they look much better full of people. And the accolades are the fact that millions of people use the spaces and get to enjoy them. And they don't think that they're going to an architectural project. They think they go to work at Peckham levels and then go for a drink afterwards and then go to Frank's Bar on the roof and have an epic view over London as the sun sets. And it's part of an experience, and the buildings become places that people want to be. And I think, especially, post-COVID, we think about how buildings are being used now. You have to create those places that people can have experiences in. Is kind of what drives people to come into cities still and want to go to work, because otherwise they'll just stay at home.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Carl, what unconventional piece of advice would you give to younger architects and designers out there?
Yeah, I think I would probably say that, particularly young designers, I think maybe everybody in the architecture industry is a bit afraid of failure. And I think that, my career has been littered with failure, but my success is really built on failure. I honestly don't see how you can be successful without failing. And I think if you try not to fail, it just means that you're not taking any risks and that you will not innovate, and things will just stay as they are. So my advice would be, if it feels a bit risky, then you should have a go at it. And if you fail, failure is a funny thing, isn't it? You might not achieve what you wanted to, but the success will be that you'll learn from it. And then if you actually then learn from that failure, then it'll be a success next time. So I would say something I wish somebody had told me early on is look for things that you can fail at, embrace it, because it's going to be the fuel that will drive you forward.
I love that. Yeah. So you either win or you learn. I think that's the thing as well, that often we We tend to operate generally within our comfort zone a lot of the time. And it's when you push yourself outside of that and you take those, maybe seem slightly riskier, some of those opportunities, but it's when you take those risks and push yourself out of your comfort zone into that zone where there is that risk of failure. There's some jeopardy there. But that's when great things can happen, isn't it? And as you say, if we reframe how we think about failure, the fact that every opportunity to fail it's an opportunity to learn. And it's a bonus if it works and you win, and that's great too. Yeah, that's a really good takeaway.
Yeah, and I think the problem that architects face really is a mindset, which when you do your part 3, it's basically you're told not to really step out of your comfort zone. If you haven't got experience in something, then you shouldn't be taking it on, which I've always found, I understand why I guess it's kind of couched in that way, but it's such a limiting mindset. And I think it's something that Cass and I, very early on, we were aware of it because we were doing our part 3s. And we would take a kind of I think we used to call it a kind of baby steps. So we would take small risks. So we wouldn't go for, I don't think I would have gone in my first couple of years. I wouldn't have wanted to, if somebody had said design Mat View Drama School, I just wouldn't have been ready for it. So, but I think at the scale that you're working in, that you should be taking risks. You should be pushing yourself, because the only way that you can really learn, I do believe, is by taking risks, which is going to mean you're going to be exposed to failure. And I think architects are just really worried about failing. They're driven people who've had to pass a lot of exams and gone through the critique process, and people want positive affirmation. They don't want to fail.
Yeah. We're going to start to wrap things up, Carl. What would be the main thing that you'd like everyone to take away from our conversation today?
Yeah, I think it follows on really from taking risks. That I think if I had an ethos, it would be DIY, do it yourself. And I think really the architecture world is a little bit stuck. And I think because architects want to succeed within the parameters of what they perceive as being successful for an architecture practice, i.e. being somebody handing you a commission for a really cool building. So if you can't succeed in that way, then somehow it's not success. But I would urge all architects at whatever stage of your career or whatever scale you're at, you should be spending your energy generating your own projects. That's what I believe in, self-initiated projects. Of course, now we've got to a point where we are being given great projects to work on, that we're not having to self-initiate, but in a way, the projects that we've done previously that have been self-initiated, and basically everything that I've done or that we've done as a practice that has had any real value has generally been a self-initiated project, something that we were not commissioned to do. We kind of made the project happen. So I think those projects are the ones that make a difference. So whether it doesn't always have to be on making money, it could be that you identify a little community group that needs help with something, so maybe spend some time doing that. But basically, we just need to break the cycle of developers and clients handing out work to us, and then we're constrained by producing a kind of set of drawings for somebody. I think architect skills can be really unlocked, and we can help to solve a lot of problems if we actually became our own clients. And whether that's being a developer or a community champion or on whatever scale it is, I think we could spend less time doing competitions and bidding for work that, quite frankly, we probably don't even want to win, and just spend more energy actually fixing real problems.
I love that. That is such a great takeaway. Thanks for sharing that, Carl. Was there anything else you wanted to add that we haven't already covered? We've covered quite a lot, but was there any other final thoughts you wanted to add before we finish up?
I think that's probably more or less it. I think, we've rambled around all over the place there. It's gone some places.
There's another question that I would like to ask you. And as you know, I love to travel, as do you. And I just wondered if you could tell me one of your favourite places and what you love about it. And I appreciate this might be a really tough question because there's probably lots of places that you love. Could be somewhere near or far.
Yeah, it is a tough one because I visited some amazing places, and Mexico's right up there. But in the end, I've plumped for New Zealand, which is somewhere I visited North Island maybe 25 years ago, but last summer we went there for 5 weeks, Mary and I, and we spent a couple of weeks on North Island and then 3 weeks on the South Island. And what I like about it is it's like a continent compressed into like 2 small islands, more or less the size of the UK. I just love the people as well, just their can-do attitude, friendly, and it's got everything. It's got mountains, volcanoes. We did scenic train rides. We landed in a helicopter on the top of a mountain and got off and walked around a glacier. We went whale watching. We went on kind of riverboat ride, jet boat rides. And I think what I like about the country is it's just an amazing natural paradise. But the Kiwis they've got an attitude of getting out into nature and enjoying it. And the whole country is really set up to allow you to access quite affordably the natural wonders of the place. And there isn't a kind of preservationist kind of mindset where you can't go here and you can't go there. So I love the cities as well. It was amazing to see how the Christchurch had been rebuilt after the earthquake. Wellington's one of my favourite places now, a beautiful little city tucked into a bay with a beach and just a really beautiful size. And just everything about the place is great. And it's obviously a great, easy, lazy traveller's place if you speak English, because you can kind of get by. And I've actually been learning Spanish for 1.5 years as a result of stumbling around Mexico, not being able to really speak a word of Spanish. So it could have been Mexico that came out on top, but I think because I didn't speak the language, it kind of slightly limited certain aspects. But yeah, both amazing places. But New Zealand is just an incredible place. Yeah, Milford Sound we visited as well, which was shrouded in mist, and then we were a bit disappointed. And then just at the last minute, when we were halfway through the Sound, the mist lifted and we saw this natural wonder, this epic fjord. So yeah, it was quite a memorable month, actually.
Oh, sounds amazing. I was fortunate enough to visit New Zealand, I think it'd be about 20 years ago now. I spent about 3 weeks travelling there, and I had such an amazing time. As you say, kind of like a continent in miniature. I had lots of different experiences. You mentioned we'd probably visited a few of the same places, thinking about it, Carl, because I did like volcano trekking and I did skydiving and fishing trips and swimming with dolphins and all sorts of stuff, and a lot of lifelong memories made on that trip. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Haven't been to Mexico yet. That's still on my bucket list of places to visit. So
we did a dawn balloon flight over the pyramids, I think Teotihuacan, which is on the outskirts of Mexico City, but in a flotilla of 30 balloons. We didn't realize it was a flotilla. We just thought we were going up in a balloon. But the fact that we were surrounded in a massive flotilla of balloons, just as the sun came up, was just unbelievable. A little bit scary as well, but in a good way.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Carl, I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation today. It's been fantastic. Thanks so much for being a guest on the show and sharing a bit of your story. Could you just remind everyone, where's the best place for people to connect with you online?
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. If you Google me, Carl Turner, I'll come up on LinkedIn, so I'm easy to find.
Awesome. I'll make sure that we pop that link into the show notes. And if anyone wants to learn more about Turner.Works, the website URL, it's Turner.Works.
Yes, that's it. Slightly odd one, but also easy to find.
Yeah, easy to find and memorable, I would say.
Yeah, great.
Cool.
Well, it's been awesome, John. Thanks for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Thanks again, Carl. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Architecture Business Club. If you liked this episode, think other people might enjoy it, or just want to show your support for the show, then please leave a 5-star review or rating wherever you listen to podcasts. It would mean so much to me, and it makes it easier for new listeners to discover the show. And if you haven't done so already, don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss another episode. And if you'd like to connect with me online, you can do that on most social media platforms. Just search for @Mr. John Clayton. The best place to connect with me online is LinkedIn, and you can find a link to my profile in the show notes. Remember, running your architecture business doesn't have to be hard, and you don't need to do it alone. This is Architecture Business Club,